Good evening, KZFR. This is Kevin Cook here, your host of Write.onair, the show that's all about writing, pretty much. This is going to be a very unique show tonight. We have a lot of stuff kind of packed in, and it's going to be, to say the least, a blast. So Write.onair has been made possible by the generous contributions of KZFR supporters and by the Chico News and Review, providing Northern California with news, commentary, and entertainment. The Chico News and Review is available for free every Thursday at over 600 locations throughout Butte, Glenn, and Tehama counties, and at newsreview.com. All right, guys, well, let's go ahead and intro this real quick here. This is Pledge Drive 2 weeks now, I think.
Yes.
2 weeks, yes. The previous host, Sue, has confirmed that for me, so now I know for a fact. Please, if you guys like any part of KZFR and you enjoy listening to the shows or enjoy this show or any show specifically, you guys fund us. We are 75% listener supported, and you can call in and choose to keep us going at 895-0131. And I also have a special guest here tonight. His name is Jim Mathias with the Jesus Center. And you are what you call a Jesus Center Harvester of Hope, was it?
Well, that's what we call our CSA, is Harvesting Hope. And we've been doing this about 6 years now, and it's a job training program for the homeless. It's where we intersect homelessness in our community, give them some choices and some opportunities. And we're seeing a lot of healing from this farm, and it's really exciting. I now call myself a horticultural therapist. So it's been so much fun, so much fun. And Sue, the previous host, she was part of the initial CCA. Come on, so she really was a blessing to me in the beginning. And so, but yeah, it's one of the job training programs we have at the Jesus Center.
Wow, very cool. Where is that located, by the way?
It's at the end of West 16th Street, at where Chestnut dead ends in. It kind of two dead ends at the southwest side of town, near the barber yard, near Diamond Match.
Is that near the Costco, out of curiosity? I feel like it's
the other side.
Other
no,
side?
It's the west side of town. The Costco's on the east side.
Oh, opposite. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Wow, very cool. So, what is your favorite thing about working as a horticultural therapist? If you had to pin
well,
it down
it's collaboration, and I've heard Rich Ober talk about that tonight. The previous guests were talking about collaboration and having a dialogue. And when when I collaborate with the community and intersect the homeless population, collaborate with them, things happen, and beautiful things happen. And so it's allowing that dialogue to happen in a way where you don't judge, you just love. And that's what we see happen, and it's so much fun to be a part of. I tell you, it's been really a joy to do this.
What a beautiful, beautiful answer. Oh, that is so good. Well, unless there's anything else you can think of to tag on at the last second, I think we'll segue into the show.
Well, I really enjoy poetry, and that's and so I enjoy writing, and so I love your show. So I hope a lot of people call in and
thank you so much,
and write some big checks.
We'll plug you. Oh, yeah, that would be really nice. Plug you one more time. Jim Mathias, horticultural therapist for the Jesus Center, located at
West 16th Street, at the end of West 16th Street.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, West 16th. Well,
that's the farm. The Jesus Center is at is on 13th and Park.
Okay,
yeah, right on the corner there.
Perfect. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Have a good night. All right, well, we have another guest with us, the main guest of the show tonight, Paul Belz. Man, I'm so stoked to have you. You've been lined up to be on the show for at least 2 months now, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
Oh, and you'll definitely want to lean in close to the mic. They're very sensitive
how
for
is
you.
this?
A little bit closer, possibly.
How about
Perfect.
this?
Now we can hear you loud and clear. So, was it 2 months then? I missed your answer there.
A month and a half, maybe.
Month and a half. Whew. Well, I've been looking forward to it. We've looked over your stuff, and this is going to be a fun night. So what background do you have in writing, if anything?
I've been writing for a lot of years. I am a pretty well-published poet, and I actually do have a collection that I'm trying to publish. One of the pieces I'm going to read tonight is from that collection.
Oh, okay.
And I'm also a prose writer. I've done a lot of travel writing, and I've written about education and natural history, been published in a number of places.
So you
And
have-
I'm working on a book about Bidwell Park.
oh my goodness. So yeah, you definitely have a background here. Wow. So what Bidwell Park, is that book coming out anytime soon?
Oh,
or-
no, not anytime soon. I'm still working very hard on it, doing a lot of research and interviewing people. It's going to be some of the history of the park, a lot of the natural history, a lot of the issues a lot of things that people have worked on, different aspects of the park, and different disagreements that have happened in the community. And I'm going to wind up really talking about very hopeful and positive things people are doing, because the park's a wonderful place.
When you finish that book, you'll have to come on here again and plug it and talk about it, because that would be amazing.
Sounds great.
Yeah. So I think Natalie and I had talked. You have something else a cool little project, right?
Califragile. And
Okay. Yeah, I'll mention Califragile. Califragile is a local website for writers, specifically people who write about social and environmental issues, and they have particular themes. And I'll give the URL for Califragile. It's very simple: www.califragile, CALIFRAGILE.org. And yeah, take a look at it. And Ren, the editor, is very interested in getting submissions from people.
Wow. We will definitely plug that again right at the end of the show.
Sounds good.
That is an amazing website. But because our time is fairly limited here, I want to jump into your pieces. I'm
Okay.
so excited for this. So do you have any in mind to go first?
I certainly do. So I'll start with this one. Metamorphic Kid. This is the one from the collection I mentioned, and I will say something about it later. Metamorphic Kid. Do your arms reach as far as bald eagle's wings? Nature Center sign asks a boy aged 10. Brown pelicans? Red-tailed hawks? Reach out by these birds' pictures. Compare. This kid with night-colored hair stretches to seabird size, fills himself with brown feathers and a breath just before he flies. He takes pelican for his name, leaves spelling tests, school thugs, drunk mom behind. He flaps, drifts quickly and low, above tumbling waves, past zipping cormorants and black sea ducks that bounce down and up on gray ocean. He dips low, watches sandpipers scatter on the beach. Seal sticks its face above waves to signal, asks, "What are you?" Waves hiss, crack, pebbles together, rumble and echo the rain. Passing whale spouts, breaches, scatters Pacific when it crashes down. Boy wheels, grabs salt wind for his love. He lands, sheds feathers, grows new hair, stands by the sign on two strong legs. He's complete now, made from bull kelp, barnacles, moon jellies, limpets, sharks. His jealous brother walks up to the sign.
Paul, I love this poem. I'm originally from Santa Cruz, and there's such beautiful description of the ocean in here and the transformation that's taking place in it. And it made me smile because the first time I read it, I wasn't sure exactly what was happening. And then I read the title. I didn't start with the title, Metamorphic Kid.
Right.
And he becomes this bird, this creature, and I love that line that he takes pelican for his name, leaves spelling tests, school thugs, drunk mom behind, and he flies. And I love it. I love the idea of taking flight in this and just leaving behind that nonsense. I just thought it was so beautiful. I love it. Excellent.
Thank you.
There's a lot of information about the character that isn't actually included in the poem. Like it's referenced the drunk mom, the school thugs, the jealous brother. It's just interesting that the poem kind of hyper focuses on his immediate experience, but just a slight reference to everything that he's escaping, and it feels like a very escapist poem to me. Is that correct?
I don't know that I would call it escapist. I mean, I've done a lot of work with children, nature education.
Okay.
And I mean, it's I could talk about this for a long time, but exposure to nature is a very, very healing and
Yeah.
positive thing for kids from a lot of backgrounds. And there's a whole lot of scientific data backing this up right now, more and more all
Yeah?
the time. Oh, yeah. But in my mind, what's happening here is the boy is coming from a very alienated situation
Yeah.
and just really connecting very much with the world around him.
Communing with nature more than he does the people in his immediate life.
At least for the moment, at least
Yeah.
getting a little bit of perspective and a little bit of balance and healing here.
Well, and that says
Yeah.
a lot too, because his brother isn't able to. And I think also what's really important, and what you pointed out, Nick, is like it's kind of this line that passes over these really heavy ideas, you know, the spelling test, the pressures of school, and bullying, and a drunk mother. But what's not being told, the descriptions are more of the transformation, of the life, of the hope, and less about the hurt and the pain. And that's what I connected with. Like, I know that feeling of just the transcendence it's beautiful, and it's so hopeful. And I just thought I was reading this after work today, and it's actually World Mental Health Day today, and I just thought, oh, this is so beautiful. We need to read this today. And excellent.
Well, in my mind, his brother is going to step up and do it now.
God, I hope so.
I'll cross my fingers for him.
Yeah.
Speaking of World Mental Health Day, there's a condition that is talked about. It's called nature deficit disorder.
Yeah.
And a lot
Wow.
of people talk about that, talking about how kids and adults really are separated from the world around them.
Yeah.
And how all the negative stuff that comes from this. It's something that I and a lot of other people I could mention, some of whom are probably listening, are trying to counter.
Yeah.
And so hopefully this kid does get a little bit of peace and perspective from this. I've seen kids open up very much,
Yeah.
taking them into a natural setting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that last stanza is just so gorgeous. I love it. He's complete now, made from bull kelp, barnacles, moon jellies, limpets, sharks. You use all the right words. You come from a place of knowledge, and I just think that's really important when you write a poem like this. It's not just like, he is the ocean now. It's not this all-encompassing term. You use actual factual words. Ooh, I rhymed. Actual factual words that tell us in so many terms that make you believe he really is this.
That's internal rhyme,
Yeah.
Natalie.
Yeah. It was gorgeous. I just
Thank
loved
you.
it.
I'll say one other thing. This is from a collection. A friend of mine several years ago asked me if I would write a collection of poems, which is largely from the perspective of other species. So this is part of that. But I wrote that, but I also included a few things about people trying to connect with the other species.
Yeah.
So I'm working on getting it published. I'll have to get back with that.
Keep at it.
Hello,
good luck.
Marcus, if you're out there.
Man, that is a beautiful piece. You guys are on fire tonight. I'm just going to let you keep rolling. What's your next piece?
My next piece, I want to say a couple of things about this. Grand Central Anthropocene. A lot of people probably know this, but Anthropocene is a term that a lot of scientists use for the geological period we're in right now, the human-dominated period. And we could sit here and talk about that all night. There's a lot of opinions about it, but we won't. The other thing I'll say about this is you might guess from this that I dislike New York City. I don't. I like New York City to visit. It's a fascinating place. But anyway, I was sitting in Grand Central Station this summer, and this kind of came out of me. Marble walls, still air stifles. No stream tumbles by, just careening humans, stumbling with their cell phones. Dry voices give muffled words that scrape together and crackle. Pale chandeliers, lights, lack stars, colors, and never twinkle. This is no habitat. Folks sleep on benches, squat against pillars, find few places to hide or pee. Space, that's a farce. People trip on each other's shoes. Knees collide and everyone goes on. Nothing's different from any other moment. Water's scarce, but African coffee, lavender tea, wine with a hit of orange abound. Food from all places, sesame tofu, honeyed Brussels sprouts, blackened catfish, infinite chocolate, and vegan donuts are all scrunched into one throbbing store. I'm fascinated. Now I'll run away.
Excellent. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go. I was talking to Kevin about this before you had come down to the station, how this read like an anthropologist's field notes, and I just love the observational quality of this piece. I've been to New York, and it is really overwhelming at first, even the shadows of buildings
yes.
on you. I really thought I was going to die at first. It's really scary. And I love the points that you make in this. One thing that I noted was that water was scarce, something that we think is just everywhere. But there's all these exotic things available: African coffee, lavender tea, tofu. It's everywhere in one place, but the water is scarce. I love that. That's an excellent point to make in this poem about a place that you are fascinated by, but you also want to run away from.
Yeah. Well, one of the places this is coming from is when ecologists talk about habitat. There are basically 4 parts of habitat: food, water, shelter, and space. And this is what we bring out to kids a lot in environmental ed, and I really do address all of these
Wow.
in this. I mention all of them in one way or another, that this is not really a natural habitat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forget what famous author said it, but I have this quote ringing into my head about when he was giving writing advice. He said to treat your environment as another character, because environment informs so much about how people interact, what world they're living in, and everything about a situation. So I'm impressed by how carefully you treat your environment and how much information and how much you're paying attention to the spaces around you. In the previous poem also, there's a lot about the ocean, and there's a lot about the sea breeze, and there's a salt in the wind and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that line: pale chandeliers, lights, lax stars, colors, and never twinkle. It's just beautifully written.
Thank you.
I have mad respect for your writing skills, Paul, and I can really see how, your voice is very informed by your experience and your knowledge. And something that I learned when I worked in editing at Chico State, woohoo, was that some of the best writers weren't English majors. They were people that were scientists, doctors, psychologists. They were people that studied other things and studied humanity and the other side of humanity. And so I can see that it's very much reflected in your observations and your writing and your quality of your writing.
I have had a lot of writing classes.
Yeah.
And there was a point when I did think about going for an MFA, but I went for the science and environmental ed instead.
Yeah.
And I mean, we could talk a lot for all evening again about MFAs, whether you really need it or not.
I know, right?
I think write what you know. That's one of the basic things that we're told.
Yeah.
And also tell, don't show. Or show, don't tell.
Yeah.
Duh. Good grief.
I think that'll be the quote for the show, is what you said: mad respect for your writing skills.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's the title for it right there.
Well, very good. Appreciate it.
I love, you were mentioning hitting the 4 things that an environment needs, and the one that stuck out to me the most was the water is scarce. Because almost in most environments, you can kind of more or less not take away, but there can be restrictions on the other ones, but water is the main one. If there is no water, there's almost going to be guaranteed no life at all. And so to see like this entire environment built around a lack of something is just really interesting to think about.
It's really hard to find a water fountain in Grand Central Station, and it's really hard to find a bathroom
Yeah.
in a lot of the stations. So but you don't have the water, but you have all these other human-produced things to drink.
Right. Man, marvelous pieces. And there's some definite themes that are linking together, which we'll probably touch on right at the end to kind of show the whole what it all encompasses. But what is your... Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Oh, I would say we'll move on to your next piece unless you have more.
I was just going to say, I do a whole lot of nature writing. It's true. I write a lot of other things, too.
Okay.
But a lot of times, whatever I'm writing, the natural world is there in one way or another.
Oh, man, very beautiful. Well, we're going to take a quick, 30-second pitch here for some, as you know, it is Pledge Week, so we're going to go...
Yes. And this is your Pledge Captain, Jesse. I was just telling Sue this for the last hour. Where else can you find programming like this on the radio, right? This is people-powered community radio. We're pumping out the watts. We are listener-supported community radio, and when we say that we cover the Sacramento Valley, the foothills, and beyond, we are not kidding. We have probably a bigger range of listeners than a lot of other community radio stations here in this country, and we need your help. We know that you support community radio. We know that you support unique shows like this, the one that you're listening to right now, and so we really want to hear from you. 895-0131. Call with your pledge today. We got folks out here waiting for your calls. Sue is out here actually. She went over from her show and she's a phone volunteer now. So if you want to call up and give Sue a call or Natalia a call, please do. 895-0131.
Appreciate that, man. We'll catch you soon. And like you said, if you guys want to be part of this and help this show keep going, please do call in 895-0131. Let's dive into your next piece.
All right. Well, this one is a true story.
Oh, okay.
And this one does come from my experience as a nature educator. And this is called The Lizard Catcher. 10 years old, she named the lizard Jim, that bluebelly she caught without my permission, and held him gently by his neck. He twisted his head, nipped her with tiny teeth. "Stop, Jim," she giggled, and shared him with the class. "Let him go," I told the uncontrolled girl of deep voice, shoulder-length hair, denim shorts, paintless nails. She grinned. All the kids longed to touch his scales, this bit of bumpy wildness in their friend's hand. "Set him free." Contented by his rough touch, she placed him on an oak's root. Her friends sighed. Reptile scampered over crunching leaves, dusty soil, to darkness and safety in a log's crack. "Bye, Jim," she whispered. "I'll join you there."
What a delightful piece.
And a true story.
Were you? Oh, go ahead.
The first thing that jumps out to me is, again, the theme of yearning for nature, that everyone's like, you know, all the kids want to touch this, they want to be a part of it, they want to interact with nature, and that when she releases the lizard again, she wants to be where it is. Another thing that jumps out to me is that this child and the child from your first poem are both exactly 10 years old. And I wonder if there's anything behind that.
I never thought about that.
Okay.
No, that's
Just
interesting.
thought I'd ask, but
Just chance, I think.
okay.
That's probably one of the age groups I've worked with the most. So
Okay.
maybe that's just why.
Yeah.
I know it's a true story, but it is a girl holding a lizard, which, you know, I mean, I myself am a fan of lizards and bugs and things, but you wouldn't typically have girls, you know, wild over a lizard. And I like that. I like that she's
Yeah.
the lizard catcher and she's the one that wants to join him. And she names him Jim. I wonder why Jim, of all things.
I have no idea.
Yeah. And her nails are paintless. I like that little detail in there, that she's just not your typical ideal little girl prancing around.
She was a very unique kid. I often wonder what happened to her. I told her, "You're either going to be a scientist or an artist or both," and she liked that.
Who wouldn't like that? That's a great life aspiration right there.
Yeah.
I love how well you've caught just, like when I read this piece, the first word that comes to mind is just like delight. Just complete adoration of this, as you said, this bit of bumpy wildness in their friend's hand. It is just, all your pieces so far have just been magical, especially when it relates to kids. Like, you've managed to catch that essence really well, and how these kids just see nature in just this beautiful, magical wilderness.
Well, it's like children are finding freedom, and it's something you would think a child would already know, but in your poetry, it's like these children never experienced it before until they were introduced to it by nature.
Actually, this particular girl was a real nature kid, so
Yeah.
maybe I need to work on that a little.
Well, I mean,
Okay.
it could be reflective of the reader too.
True.
But honestly, in my own experience, I think that may be the place that you find it most. I can see definitely when I've held a lizard, I felt very free and I felt a connection to it. And I just love that she wants to join this little thing, but she lets it go too. And puts it on an oak's root.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's lovely.
Paul, I think we're nearing the end of our show, so you have two options. I think if you really hurry, we could probably squeeze in one more piece, or we can ask you a question, or both, if you want to squeeze in a piece and maybe not discuss it as much and then ask a question, because usually we have a question at the end of the show that I'd like to ask you, but either direction is
Why don't
great.
you go ahead? I think we are probably running out of time.
Okay. So I'll probably go with the one we've asked a lot of people, because I always like seeing the answer for this, is where do you find your inspiration for writing? If you had to tell someone else like where to look for it, or just show them your example of how you write. 4 minutes. Go ahead. Take your time.
4 minutes. Where do I find my inspiration? Well, I've read a whole lot of poetry and prose, and I really like a lot of people. The person I mentioned who I really like a lot is Pablo Neruda. I also really like Emily Dickinson.
Yeah.
And Dickinson, actually, a lot of people don't know this, but Dickinson was very much a nature writer.
Yeah, she was.
Very much, with a lot of other things. I started out being under the influence of Allen Ginsberg, who I still like quite a bit. It's interesting. A lot of people talk about how the two big influences in contemporary American poetry are Whitman and Dickinson. Whitman, the kind of rambling narrative character, and Dickinson, who is the short and concise one, and the one who's maybe more open to interpretation. I think they're both wonderful, and I think I've been influenced by both of them. Where do I get inspiration? Well, from being in the world, from walking in Bidwell Park. I've written a lot of travel poetry, just observing and just really picking up. And I think a lot of us really find that writing clarifies how we feel about the world and really pulls our perceptions together.
Oh, that is beautifully said. Well, we'll ask the second part to that question, too. Any advice for new or old writers?
Right.
Right?
Sit down and do it, and understand that, yes, you are going to have a writer's block. I'm kind of coming off a writer's block right now around my book, but just even when you don't feel like it, sit down and scribble something. Doesn't have to be any good, but it will get the juices flowing.
Anything, get it out. Oh,
And read.
Yeah.
and read. Yeah. Bring in inspiration from the outside if you can. Well, I want to touch back in our last little bit here on, pull up my notes here. You mentioned a website. That was califragile.org.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that again, and then plug it one last time.
Well, Califragile, it deals a lot with the environmental crisis, and it deals a lot with a lot of social issues. Ren, who is the editor, is working on an anthology of writing about the Me Too movement. And so she's pulling a lot of things together like that. And just take a look at it. She publishes a range of things, a wide range of things, but her focus is really on social and environmental issues, but she'll publish a lot of other things too. Take a look at what she's doing. And if I can make one other plug, something that I hope is coming up. So there was a speaker from the Jesus Center, and relating to him and the issue of homelessness. In January, I am hoping that my old friend Marcus Colacerdo from the East Coast is going to be passing through town. Marcus has done a lot of work around homelessness and other issues, and he and another writer have co-written a book of poetry. And he's hoping to come through in probably late January on a book tour. And we're doing some work with Chat around that.
Keep a
So
lookout
anyway.
for him. Wow, very amazing. Well, thank you, Paul. This has been wonderful to have you. Your
Oh,
pieces
thank
are
you.
fantastic. Anything you guys want to say too?
Thank you, Paul.
Oh,
Thank you,
thank
Paul.
you.
Yeah.
I really had a lot of fun.
I hope.